The Falcons came close, but no cigar versus Kansas City on Sunday night.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for a very long time, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me each and every day. As everydayers, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode, we're going to talk about what we learned about this coaching staff in this game, how the defense made progress, but was it enough? And we'll start things off talking about the lack of late game heroics this week, unlike what we got last week. And if you miss the game, Falcons lost to the Chiefs 22-17. They had two chances late to score that go-ahead touchdown in the final 12 minutes of the game, but came up short both times. The first time they moved the ball down the field on a long 15-play, 8-minute drive. Falcons got the ball down to the Chiefs' 6-yard line, threw a pass on third down, and Kirk Cousins missed the throw it was a little bit underthrown to Kyle Pitts. There was a lot of contact with the defender there. There probably should have been a DPI call, but you can only control what you can control, and you can't control whether or not the refs are going to throw the flag. You can't control whether or not you throw a better ball to Kyle Pitts, and I think the part that the Falcons did control, they didn't necessarily take advantage of their control. And then they went for it on fourth down and attempted another pass to Drake London in the end zone, and that was not necessarily a great ball from Kirk Cousins, also underthrown on that situation. And going for it on that fourth down, to me, was 100% the right call, not second-guessing that decision at all. Basically, you have 4 minutes left in the game. At that point in time, you're down 5 points. You're inside the 6-yard line. This is your best stop. You're going to have to score a touchdown, or I guess technically you could kick 2 field goals, but to win the game. But this is your best chance to get 6 points right then and there, going for it on that 4th and 5 at the 6-yard line. Basically, up to this point in the game, the Chiefs have been averaging about 4 minutes per possession on each of their possessions in this game. With 4 minutes left, you're not guaranteed to get the ball. So going for it in that situation was absolutely, in my opinion, the right call to go. So Raheem going for that makes total sense. In that regard, they just missed the throws, right? And then you get a second opportunity because your defense does actually get a stop, a 3-and-out, and you do get the ball back. You move the ball down the field, and then you have 2 opportunities with 1 yard to go, 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. You call 2 run plays. Tyler Algier gets stuffed on the 3rd and 1. Bijan gets stuffed on the 4th and 1 and gets blown up in the backfield. And the Chiefs sort of saw that play all game. And again, I don't love that fourth down call to run the ball in that situation. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Regardless of what play you call in that situation, if you don't execute the play, people are going to second guess it. If you throw the ball, and then people are going to be like, why didn't you run the football? Well, part of the reason why they wouldn't have run that football, in my humble opinion, was because you hadn't really been successful in short yardage all game. You had one successful touchdown run to Bijan Robinson on a 1st and goal from the 1 yard early in the game, but you barely converted that. Bijan barely crossed the plane on that one to score that touchdown. You struggled in the 4th and 1 situation last week against the Eagles. You haven't been a great short yardage team this year or last year, right? You're a great early down rushing team, and you weren't tonight, and we'll talk more about that later. But to me, I would have gone for it. You converted 2 third downs in this game, both of them on passes to Drake London. I forget the 4th down that you converted in this game. But basically, this team has not been great in short yardage situations. So I didn't love the play call. I would have play action faked it, gone up to the line of scrimmage, see the Chiefs selling out for the run, and would have called a pass play there and gone to Pitts or London in that situation if it was up to me. But, Zac Robinson going to do Zac Robinson things. So it is what it is. And so, the Falcons did not take advantage of those, late game opportunities in this game. This is the situations that the Kansas City Chiefs often find themselves in, right? This is why they win these games and the Falcons don't. I guess I'm not too mad about it. I'm not going to sit here and be butthurt about it. Like, I would have liked to seen the Falcons pull off the upset. But, the fact that I didn't go into this game expecting them to pull off the upset, I expected this to be a competitive, close football game with an opportunity for the Falcons to win the game in the end. And to me, it was just going to be a question of whether or not they took advantage of that opportunity. And unfortunately, they did not. So no, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this game. I'm sure plenty of others will. Other people will be calling for the immediate firings of various coaches and players, as they are wont to do after games. And then they wake up Monday morning, they go to work, they take the kids to school, and then they just, life continues. The earth keeps turning, despite all that anger and frustration. So we'll wrap this first segment before we talk more about the defense. We got to give the Kirk Cousins chaos meter reading. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with this is something that comes from Luke Braun, who covered Kirk Cousins for the last several years over at Locked On Vikings. And he would put it out on Twitter as a visual thing. We're just going to do the podcast because I don't fool with Twitter no more like that. And so the Kirk Cousins chaos meter has 5 levels. We added a level here for Locked On Falcons. It used to be 4. The first level was conserva Kirk. He was being, if Kirk is level 1, that means he's being too conservative. Level 2 is Kirk just being, the right amount of conservative, managing the game. Level 3 is peak Kirk Cousins, when he's at his best, where you have the right mix of chaos and smart decision making, and that's peak Kirk Cousins at level 3. We got level 3 Kirk Cousins last week against the Eagles. Level 4, we got that in week 1 against the Steelers. That's the chaos Kirk. That is Kirk Cousins chaos. He's making mistakes, he's doing crazy stuff. And then level 5 is the chaos is too much, and is it time for Michael Penix? We're not there yet. I give this a level 2 Kirk Cousins game. I thought Kirk Cousins was being classic game manager Kirk, missed some opportunities, made some throws, just sort of the classic Kirk Cousins that most people, for most of his career thought was just a middling quarterback. That's kind of what we saw from Kirk tonight. They had some opportunities again on that one series late where he had some opportunities to hit some throws, and maybe we would have said this was a level 3 game for Kirk Cousins because he made the big time throws in the big time moment with a little bit of chaos in those situations. But unfortunately, that was not the case. So this is a level 2 game for me for Kirk Cousins. So again, not too far out of the realm of possibilities and expectations based off of this. Again, these are the types of games that Kansas City has consistently won over the last 7+ years. These are the types of games that the Falcons have consistently lost over that period of time. Why they have not made the playoffs in that period of basically, right? Yeah. Ever since Patrick Mahomes became the full-time starter of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Falcons have not made the playoffs. So that's those two things coincidence probably. Let's hope it is, because I don't see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs going anywhere anytime soon. So hopefully that is just a mere coincidence. But that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. So we'll see if the Falcons can regroup and bounce back next week against the Saints in another home game. But we'll talk more about the Falcons defense and the things that they have to clean up next week. But what did they do this week, and why I think individual players stepped up, but the sum of the parts on defense still needs a lot of work. And we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, guys, scheduling can be a hassle, especially when you're getting back late from a football game and you didn't go as hard on the free glizzies, the free hot dogs in the stadium on Sunday Night Football for Arthur Blake's induction into the Ring of Honor, and you're still hungry and you just need to open up your phone and find DoorDash, your on-demand food delivery app that's going to get you fed if you didn't get enough free hot dogs on Sunday Night Football. Maybe you just want more hot dogs that you're willing to pay for. You can find it on DoorDash app, or you just want to set up for your game day favorite, your favorite food, snacks, and beverages for game day. It's all available on DoorDash. Just download the DoorDash app to order your game day faves. Use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24, and you'll get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. So let's talk Falcons defense. And, I think the defense made some plays, especially late in the game. Obviously, the 2 3-and-outs in the final 4 minutes of the game really gave this Falcons offense opportunities to go out there and win. And obviously, the Falcons offense wasn't necessarily good enough. And so if you're only judging the last 4 minutes of the game, you're probably going to be higher on the defense and lower on the offense. If you're judging the previous 56 minutes of the game, that probably relationship would flip, or at least it was for me. So I know for me, I saw a lot more individual players stepping up in this game. You had Justin Simmons getting that interception on the opening Chiefs drive to stall that drive in the end zone with an interception. The 4th game in a row that he snagged a pick off of Patrick Mahomes. 6th interception, all time of that, as well as other individual players step up. We'll talk about a couple of those guys. But to me, the sum of the parts didn't quite add up to what you want because – again, the Chiefs were able to kind of control the tempo of this game. They dominated time of possession. The final tally was the Chiefs possessed the ball for 35 minutes, the Falcons only 25 minutes. And again, a lot of that was on that 8-minute drive at the end of the game to make up that ground, because going into that drive, I think the Chiefs had possessed the ball for 32 and a half minutes to the Falcons 16. And so even if you don't think it's an even split up to that point in the first 48 minutes of the game, 24-24, let's say it's 26-22 in the favor of the Chiefs or whatever. The Falcons get 6 more minutes to possess the ball. You're getting back basically 2 possessions if that's the case. Now, the fact that the Chiefs possess the ball for so much isn't completely on the defense. It's not completely on the defense. The Falcons still are struggling to sustain offense on third downs. They have been an issue all season long. They continue to be an issue in this game. They went into this game as the 30th most efficient offense on third downs. Entering this game, they were 2 of 9 in this game. That number is probably not going to go up. Maybe they'll be 29th, next week or whatever the case may be. But you're 25th in third down efficiency on defense. So, your bottom 3 on offense, your bottom 10 on defense, bottom 8 on defense. And again, the Chiefs went 6 for 14. And, again, that number got a boost due to this 2 third down stops you got late in the game. But up to that point, you've been one of the weaker third down defenses in the NFL. And so those 2 combinations, you just constantly are limiting your offense's opportunities to, put points on the board, right? Whether it's the defense letting the Chiefs go on these long drives as the Eagles did, as the Steelers did, or the offense not being able to sustain and getting these 3-and-outs and whatnot. When they're not necessarily having that success, that early down success. And so, you didn't get the Chiefs, I think, in a single third and long. The only 3rd and long you had in this game, true 3rd and long, was a 3rd and 19 on the last play of the game after a couple of kneel downs. That was it. I think there was 1 3rd and 7 that the Chiefs had. There was 1 3rd and 8 that the Chiefs had in this game. Everything else was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, a bunch of 3rd and 1s and whatnot. And the Chiefs were able to get into these manageable third downs because of their success running the football in early downs. They ran for 128 yards on the ground, 72 of those by Carson Steele. Of course, people are going to be like, how can you let Carson Steele run all over you? Well, how do you let Isaiah Pacheco run all over you? He's the 7th round pick, right? The Chiefs aren't successful. No offense to Isaiah Pacheco, is a heck of a running back, but the Chiefs' success on the ground isn't because they have the world's greatest talents at running back. It's because they have one of the best interior offensive lines of football, and they can consistently create space up the middle. And the Falcons, as we saw last week on a lot of those runs by Saquon Barkley, continue to struggle with that. Again, some of that may be done due to light boxes. Some of that will be due to poor play from the linebackers. We'll see what the film says on Troy Anderson. First watch was not that impressed with Troy Anderson in this game. So we'll see, what the film says, if it comes back a little bit more impressive for him. Some of it was poor tackling across the board, not just from Anderson, but also guys in the secondary. I know Rashee Rice was breaking a ton of tackles in this game and whatnot. So overall, again, this is why, I sit here and I go, the sum of the parts on defense aren't quite, everything. The tackling isn't there. The run defense isn't there. The pass rush isn't quite there. They were able to dial up some pressure against Mahomes. I was curious to see if Jimmy Lake would do that in this game. Would he be aggressive going after Mahomes? They were able to dial up some pressure. They weren't able to get Mahomes on the ground in this game. There's a reason for that. There were a lot of swing passes, a lot of screens by the Chiefs. I think that was part of the design to keep that liability at left tackle, Wanya Morris. And Wanya Morris, I think, held his own. He got beat a couple of times by Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter. We didn't get to see him matched up against Matthew Judon all that much. Again, Matthew Judon has primarily been the left outside linebacker in this defense. That continued to be the case in this particular game. Judon had a couple of nice, disruption plays and whatnot. But for the most part, again, you saw some positives from the individual plays, like Justin Simmons and Ebiketie and Carter and Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata were making some plays and whatnot. Mike Hughes made some plays. J.C. Bates made some plays. A.J. Terrell made some plays, etc. So you had individuals playing, better. And so this gives me hope and optimism that, they can continue to build defensively. But right now, again, defense still, to me, is a work in progress that I feel like is, again, the expectations going in the season is this defense was going to be a middling defense that was, quote unquote, good enough to help you win games. That's what they were in this game. Again, not a great performance. Again, if you focus on the last 4 minutes, you'll be like, oh, this defense was great. You focus on the first 56 minutes, you'll be like, I don't know about that. So we'll see what they do. But hey, you kept two potentially high-powered offenses in check somewhat these last 2 weeks against the Philadelphia Eagles and Chiefs. So there are positives to take away from these performances. Don't get me wrong when it comes to that. But when you're just going to let teams just control the games on the ground, and next week, that's going to be a much bigger problem because that's exactly what the Saints are going to want to do. That's what they've been doing this season when they've been successful. So you're going to have to stop that this week because I don't think you're going to be able to win that type of game if you let the Saints do that like you've let Philadelphia and Kansas City do that. I know you're much more worried about those two teams in terms of Philly and Kansas City's potential in the passing game than you are with it. But, the Saints, we'll see. Again, that will be things that we'll discuss as the week unfolds. But again, I think this is progress for the defense, but we still have a ways to go before I can sit here and come on the podcast and be like, man, defense was balling out today. It was like they made some plays. They had some highlight reel plays. There were positives to take away from this game. But overall, I still think this is still very much a work in progress on that side of the ball. But we talked about Jimmy Lake, doing some interesting things to disrupt Patrick Mahomes in this game. What about Zac Robinson? This was also a game that we would learn a lot about Zac Robinson going up against Steve Spagnuolo. Would he feature Kyle Pitts? How big a concern is the Falcons' struggles to run the football, and especially with their offensive line? We'll break all of that down to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. But first, guys, I want to tell all of you that you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get that hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bets over at FanDuel. And if you get started with you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is head on over to FanDuel.com. And when you do, check out the line for the upcoming Falcons-Saints matchup in Week 4. The Falcons opening line for that game are currently favored by 1.5 points. That line's almost certainly going to move, as they often do from the opening lines over the course of the week. So if you head on over to FanDuel right now, you can take advantage of where that line is right now and take the Falcons right here where they're favored. And maybe that line moves in the Saints' favor. Maybe it moves more in the Falcons' favor. Again, take advantage by going to FanDuel right now, America's #1 sportsbook. So tomorrow's episode, we will be joined by Josh Kendall of The Athletic to talk about this game and what's going on with the Falcons through 3 weeks of the season. But, so far we have seen positive glimpses of this Falcons team. And again, they're a work in progress. Not too surprised that, hey, the Falcons aren't this fully formed entity 3 weeks into the season. Again, as we talked about this all summer long, the expectations were they would get off to a reasonably, again, Kirk Cousins doesn't get off to the fastest starts, and we'll see where he can be by the time we get to October in November, where he usually plays his best football on that side of the ball as this offense grows, and we'll see what the defense can grow into. And so the 1-2 start, was what I predicted going into the season. Again, the one win I thought would be the Steelers game, not the Eagles game. But, beggars can't be choosers at this point in time. So we'll see. Right now, we got 3 divisional games coming up, all 3, division winners kind of flipped the script this weekend, right? Carolina have been struggling for 2 weeks and won a game. The Saints and Bucks have been rolling for 2 weeks and then lost this weekend. So we'll see what's what on that end, as the Falcons will be able to make up significant ground in the NFC South as the week unfolds. But we will talk about this Falcons game. And, one of the things I went into this game wanting to learn about Zac Robinson, like how would he deal with the Steve Spagnuolo defense that is historically over the last couple of years shut down these sort of McVay and Shanahan offenses effectively. I didn't go into this game expecting Zac Robinson to be the sort of prodigal son that was going to be able to figure out how to carve up a Spags defense. They had a good opening script. You sort of got Kirk into the groove with a lot of sort of simple passes, and they were able to get points going at that point in time. But to me, my guess was going to be if they can't run the football after that point, they're going to struggle to score points after that point, and that proved pretty prophetic at that point in time because the Falcons did struggle to run the football. I wanted to see if Zac Robinson was going to be able to feature Kyle Pitts after the Chiefs had struggled so mightily against Titans. We talked about in the lead up to this game, Pitts had one big catch, a 50-yard plus play to set up that second score, but really didn't get featured really a whole lot else. We'll see if there were, more opportunities. I did see a couple of times in this game where sort of Pitts was lined up outside and looked like he might have gotten open on a play, especially some of those plays in the second half where the Falcons were going to Drake London in some of those critical situations. We'll see what the film backs up on that and see if Pitts was open in those opportunities. So there may have been opportunities there, but the Falcons' go-to guy, Drake London, seemed to get those opportunities, which is somewhat understandable. So that will be something I'll be checking out. So I don't blame the Falcons for going to Drake London over Kyle Pitts at this stage, at this point in time. So, Drake London, the more reliable guy, especially in contested catch situations, which a lot of these situations and these critical down situations often are. So I don't blame it on that. But, I would like to see Kyle Pitts get featured in other ways because primarily outside of that one catch he had, he's basically been getting the Tyler Higbee treatment in this offense, which is fine for Tyler Higbee. But, you want with a guy with Kyle Pitts' skill set, you want a little bit more than that in this offense. And so far, I haven't really seen it deliver outside of that one big play this week and then the one touchdown catch in week one. So we'll see what the film says on that one. But I was really worried about whether or not this offense can function without a run game. And it seemed like that worry was warranted. Bijan got bottled up in this game. Algier had some success in this game. Likes to see those guys mix in. Bijan is the Falcons' best player. And so the Falcons continuing going to Bijan to do Bijan things, incredible things that he is want to do makes total sense. But, it was going to be a concern. Like the Chiefs do not have the same issues defending the run that we talked about last week with the Eagles, with their light boxes, with their smaller, guys up front that the Falcons could push around. And especially with the injuries the Falcons sustained in this game, Caleb McGarry went down on the third series with a knee injury, did not return. Drew Dahlman went down on the fourth series with an ankle injury, did not return. So you got to see a lot of Ryan Nuzul in this game. You got to see a lot of Storm Norton in this game. You'll probably continue to see those guys. We'll see what injury updates we get from those guys, but it doesn't look promising when guys are ruled out at halftime like Dahlman and McGarry were in this game. So we'll see on that front, but the Falcons going to have to find ways to adjust their run scheme, right? The outside zone has been their bread and butter. The Chiefs keyed on it and seemingly bottled it up in this game outside of a couple of plays early in this game where they were able to get that thing going. And that really is, the Caleb McGarry special. And I talked about this on the postcast with Jarvis Davis and Tanisha Batiste over at Locked On Sports Atlanta, that basically the engine of your run game, especially in this outside zone scheme, is Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry. Those are they give you that V8 engine. It ain't the other three guys, right? The other three guys are solid contributors and whatnot, but those are really the two guys that are driving the engine of this run game. And when you remove Caleb McGarry out of it, you go from a V8 to a V4. And I think you saw that after McGarry's exit from this game in this point, and I don't think that's going to change. This is part of the reason why, I know some of y'all, it's not everybody, but some of y'all, been pushing this Storm Norton over Caleb McGarry nonsense. And I'm just like, you guys don't watch the film because we did the breakdown for this for the Locked On Falcons Insiders last year in that Jets game when Storm Norton had to step in for Caleb McGarry, and we talked about how the Falcons weren't going to be able to run the football in their outside zone scheme because Storm Norton can't really execute those blocks in the ways that Caleb McGarry can. And it showed the following week against Tampa Bay, where we told you they're not going to be able to run the football, guys. It's going to be all on Desmond Ritter's shoulders, and we know how that ended and whatnot. And so that's going to be a challenge moving forward for this team. Like if Zac Robinson's offense isn't going to be effective because they can't get this effective running on early downs, and then we get into these third down situations and this offense continues to struggle as it has through 3 weeks, that's going to be a problem for these upcoming divisional slates if Caleb McGarry and Drew Dalman are out of lineup. So I think the Falcons are going to find ways to adjust their run scheme. Storm Norton does a little bit better against some of the gap runs and whatnot. And I did seem like the Falcons did mix in a little bit more inside zone and whatnot. And that later in the game, you had a nice end around of Ray-Ray McCloud. I didn't like all the screens to Darnell Mooney. I don't get why the Falcons run screens to Darnell Mooney. Again, Darnell Mooney's been solid this year, but he is not a yak guy. He's not a creator after the catch. And so all those swing passes and screens to Darnell Mooney just to me is you're just guaranteeing you're not going to get any yards on that. Those should be plays to Ray-Ray McCloud or Bijan Robinson or somebody else who actually is good with the ball in their hands, unlike Darnell Mooney. So hopefully we'll see the Falcons switch that up and whatnot. But they'll have to diversify their run game, I think, with McGarry if McGarry and Dalman are out of the lineup. Newsell's fine. He's a poor man's Dalman. He's basically a poor man's Dalman, but he can snap unlike Dalman. But we'll see how the Falcons can kind of vary up their run game, because if it's offense, and so far this year it has been primarily fueled by their run game, I don't think they're going to be able to spam the outside zone stuff to the degree that they have been if Caleb McGarry's out of lineup, because he has been the engine of your offense, despite all those weird knuckleheads that are out here, pushing anti-Caleb McGarry propaganda. It's clearly you're not watching the team. So, but hey, people say wild stuff on the internet all the time. So we'll let that go on today's episode. It's not like I'm not like I've been on this island or anything like that for a long time. So we'll see what the Falcons do to adjust next week against the Saints. We got some tough matchups in divisional games. Regardless of how these games you think they should go, they're always going to be tough, competitive games, as all divisional games are. So we'll see what the Falcons can do, make up some ground, pad up some wins over the next couple of weeks in the division that will definitely help them in their stretch run, or are we going to be playing behind the 8 ball continuously, through the early weeks of October as well. So that will be all in store for you guys here on Locked On Falcons in the coming days and weeks. Make sure you continue to make us your first listen to hear what Josh Kendall of The Athletic has to say about this team on tomorrow's episode. Of course, you can check us out by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for us here, guys. Again, a disappointing finish to this game. Falcons had every opportunity to win this game, but we're not going to lose any sleep. It was, there's progress. There's signs of progress for this team. Again, I did not. And again, whatever you thought the team was, y'all, you do what you do. But I'm this is my show, so we base it off of how I think, right? I don't really care what you think, but kidding. But didn't expect the Falcons to win this game. Expected this to be a close, hard-fought game. So unfortunately, they came up short in this one. So we'll see what the Falcons can do. But it's going to be a work in progress. We knew it, or I knew it was going to be. So it's going to be all right, guys. So that is going to do it for us. We will see what the Falcons have in store as the weeks unfold. A fortunate finish here in Atlanta, but I got some text from many people in the stadium saying place was going bananas. And then as it became clearer and clearer in the second half that Kansas City had taken control of this game, it became less bananas, as it is often the case. So that energy, I know you guys are going to bring it next week against the Saints in hate week. So looking forward to that. So we'll see what the Falcons can do. That's going to do it for us, guys. Continue to check out Locked On Falcons, Locked On Sports Atlanta football party tomorrow morning. Myself, Jarvis Davis, Tori McElhaney, Tanisha Batiste, giving you more insight into this game. Check out Locked On NFL to get caught up on all the other games that happened around the weekend. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.